Hello, folks. Good morning. Welcome to the June edition of our Catch Up with Keeper webinars. We're going to give people a few minutes to pile on in, although I suspect we are not going to have everyone in the usual crowd because I am here live from BKX in very, very sunny Dallas, Texas right now. And lots of our regular attendees here on this call are downstairs in the conference room, so I suspect we will not have them. And if you are here and attending from BKX, I promise you this will be recorded, so go listen to Ben and Jeannie. It's a bit of a shame, though, because we have a great couple of updates for everyone. Okay, so we'll give people another minute or so, and then we will dive on in. Oh, and I need to turn on the chat. I always forget that I need to do that here. All right. All right, attendees, y'all can now chat. Sorry about that. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get things started. So in case this is your first ever Catch Up with Keeper webinar, well, one, welcome. And if it's not, welcome too. So the way these work is there's typically three core pieces. The first is we walk through all of the new features we've shipped in Keeper over the last month. Second is if we have an app showcase, we will walk through that. We do not have one today. And then last and finally, we will go over any Q&A that people have about any of the new features that we released or anything else Keeper related or otherwise. As far as Q&A goes, if you have any questions, please drop them in the Q&A section at the bottom of the Zoom screen rather than in the chat. That will make it much easier for us to find them and respond to them. All right, and with the requisite disclaimers out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we will dive on in. Okay, so the first update should be obvious, the most obvious visual change to this page, and that is we just added the ability to add profile pictures. So now instead of just your users, your initials in whatever color we randomly assign to you, you can upload your profile picture and it will show your face anywhere you are assigned something. So whether you're a prepare reviewer, here on the client list, on the close page, in your user settings. And speaking of your user setting, that's where you can upload your photo. So you just click it, upload photo right here, drag and drop anything that you want. Another couple of small improvements on this page that I want to talk about. First is the start new close button. So some of you may have noticed this page looks less clunky than usual. And that's because we took all of the like super garish start April, start May close buttons that you would see if you needed to start a new close here on the close column. And we replaced them with this much less visually obtrusive plus sign. And so this plus sign will show up if you do need to start a close. So you can see it is here on most of them because our sandbox file is not the best at, we are not the best at keeping our sandbox file up to date. But here, for example, with Jensen Technology, we can see we're on the May close. We're supposed to be on the May close, so we don't see that button prompting us to start the June close. In case you do still want to start the like June close ahead of time, you can still do that by clicking the arrow over on the left-hand side and clicking Start June Close. All right. Now we're going to dive into the close page. A few more updates there. One more small update in case people are tired of getting bashed over the head repeatedly with the start May close modal that previously would pop up every single time you went to this page. It's now no longer a modal. So it is a like warning that looks like this so that you can know that you're not in the latest close, but then it's also dismissible. So you just click this X here, it goes away, and then it won't bother you anymore. If you refresh the page again, we're not going to keep popping up the modal, not going to keep showing that banner. So that's another way that we're trying to continue to streamline Keeper, make it easier, more polished, friendlier experience to use. And now for some actual substantive changes, we're going to go ahead and dive into the expense inconsistency report. And that's because within the reports, we have added the ability to do two really exciting things. The first is you can now resize columns. So let's say this account column is looking a little wide. We want to bring it in. We can do that just like so. And we'll go ahead and resize the type column here as well, and maybe even the date column. And so this is a great way if you want to just like get all your columns, especially if you have like class location, customer on, if you want to get all your columns on one screen, no matter how wide or narrow your monitor may be, resizing columns is now the way to do it. A quick note on how these save and don't save. So all of these columns, when you resize them, it'll save to your browser. So when you're resizing for you, not for your team. The other thing you can now do is you can now hide columns or show new columns if you've hidden them by clicking and then also reorder them. So for example, if for some reason we didn't want to see chat or we didn't want to see ask client, it's really easy to just uncheck those. And then if we wanted to say put exclude over on the left-hand side, we can just reorder it just like that as well. I don't know why you would do either of these things, but we do have a bunch of fun new functionality that's going to be coming in over the next couple of months that really relies upon this. So at the very least, it's just giving you that much more flexibility in your close to run the reports and organize the reports the way you want. One quick note is in contrast to the columns, when you resize them, this saving, so the reordering and showing and hiding on the reports here will actually persist. So if Shayna pulled up DemoCo here on her web, on her like version, her invite, she would see the columns in the same exact order with the same columns hidden as well. Okay. And then one more thing I want to show on this page here is that you can now schedule send emails. So here, if you go to your client emails, if you're sending someone an email, maybe you're working late at night, but you have some new questions for them. Maybe you're working on a Saturday. Now, instead of just clicking that send button, you can click schedule send and choose when you want to send that email to your client. All right. And then the last update we have is pretty pervasive in terms of touching a lot of different places in Keeper, but we now support non-calendar fiscal years. So this is super exciting for the Canadians in the room, as well as the folks who service nonprofits, which I know they have a lot more commonly a non-calendar fiscal year. But for starters, the way that you can enable non-calendar fiscal years is you go to this gear icon right here, you click the fiscal year tab, and then you just refresh this. And that will pull the latest fiscal year start month from QuickBooks. So we sort of like guide based on exactly what your QuickBooks data says. That way, if you're running a fiscal year-to-date report in QuickBooks, it's going to look the same as it looks in Keeper and vice versa. So if you have added your client in the last couple of weeks or so, this should already be set automatically. But if you have not, then just go ahead and click refresh. Or if you change that date in QuickBooks and you want to pull that into Keeper, just go ahead and click refresh here. And that's going to pull that information into Keeper. So now what does that report, or what does that change? First thing it changes is any of your reports or both the reports, the expense inconsistency and class inconsistency report. One of the things that we'll check for is we'll check inconsistencies against some prior period of historical data. So commonly this is the last 12 months, but that's actually something that you can control. And so, for example, you could previously make it a calendar year-to-date option. But so now, just the same, you can make it a fiscal year-to-date option. And so what this does is if you change the coding treatment of a particular vendor or a particular transaction in the new fiscal year, and you don't want to detect inconsistencies against the prior fiscal year, what you can do is you can just make this a fiscal year inconsistency, and then this will only check in the inconsistencies against the same fiscal year that you're working on. So that's the first thing it does. Second thing that it does is it touches all of both your file review reports and your management reporting in terms of date range and configuration options. So here, for example, everything that previously had a year-to-date option now says calendar year-to-date, calendar quarter-to-date, and then likewise, we have now added fiscal options as well. And that goes here in the close as well as in your any report here in your management reporting. So You can now choose to aggregate by your fiscal quarters. You can choose to run a fiscal year-to-date income statement. You can choose to have your top customers and vendors by spend on a fiscal year-to-date report. So all of the options that previously were year-to-date are now calendar year-to-date, and all of the options, we've also added another option for fiscal year-to-date. And then the last thing, there's not really much I can show here other than just to tell, is on the workflow side of things. So if you have a quarterly client, that's really frustrating if you have a quarterly non-calendar fiscal year client, because it's going to prompt you to start those. Previously, it would prompt you to start those quarters on December, the December close, the March close, the June close, and the September close. But now we support basically a workflow so that if you have a non-calendar fiscal year client, let's say their non-calendar fiscal, the start of their fiscal year is in September, then they're going to get quarterly closes in September, October, November, February, May, and August. So they'll get prompted to start, you'll get prompted to start their quarterly closes according to their fiscal year's cycle, their fiscal quarters, rather than their calendar quarters. All right. So yeah, those are the sort of three big changes in that that now happen if you have a non-calendar fiscal year client. And those actually are all the major changes that we have for this month. So at this point, I'm going to pause now and see if anyone has any questions here. And I will go ahead and answer those. Okay, Justin asked if we could add the ability to see a user's name when you hover over their profile picture. That would make a whole heck of a lot of sense, wouldn't it? I will make a note to add this to the engineers queue. Jennifer asked, is resizing and column management only under the expense inconsistency area? The answer is no, it is in all of your reports and in your search transactions. So anywhere you see these, you can now resize them. You can even resize things in your all client settings in your properties. So you can have the ability to resize your properties now. If we want status to be much wider, we can do that here. It's definitely, it's in all your searchable reports here, and in your closes and things like that. Okay, Andrea asked, are there changes coming to the reporting package? The answer is yes, but I am not in a position where I can comment on specifically what those changes are at this moment. Okay, and then Amy asked, can you schedule recurring emails? So you do have the ability to send reminder emails. So that's probably not what you're asking about, but I will just cover it briefly, which is if you have this reminders checkbox enabled, you're able to send automated email reminders to your clients. And the frequency of those goes out according to your reminder settings, which are here in your client portal settings. Okay, Lisa asked, when you add a client that is quarterly and they're not on the proper quarter, how do you fix that, basically? It's a good question. And so basically what you can do, so let's say right now we're in June, so May will be the latest close if you start a new client. So if we're going to just do it calendar quarters to make it easier, but so let's add an unconnected client. This client should be on the March close. That should be their latest close. We're just going to name that this client. So if we wanted this to say March 2023 or Q1 2023 instead of May 2023, that's actually a really good question. So I'm glad I get the time to sort of walk through and answer it. We'll maybe even chop this and put it in our help center as a best practice guide, because I know this can be a little unintuitive. But so the first thing you do is you go to your all client settings and you mark this client as quarterly. You mark them as quarterly there. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start the March close. So here we're going to start the March close. That would be the Q1 close. We can see here this is Q1 23. And the last thing we do is we're just going to delete the May close. And then that's going to set it on the right cycle here. So now we can see this client should be on March. March is now Q1 2023. And then you'll be able to start the Q2 close if you want. You'll be prompted to start the Q2 close when in 4 days here, when we roll over into July. Gosh, I can't believe the year is already halfway over. But anyways, that is how you take a client if you didn't add them sort of in the right month and they're a quarterly client, how you can reset that to the right quarter. All right. Well, I think those are all the questions we have here so far. So we are going to go ahead and call it a day for this month's updates. Oh, it looks like one more just came in. Okay, so Lisa asked, and Lisa, I appreciate the questions, but if you would like to schedule time to go over with the team, like some best practice guides, also happy to put you in touch with a person from customer success. But so anyways, Lisa asked what's the best way to have quarterly or semi-annual tasks in the closes. So if you have a quarterly client, then just all your closing tasks are definitionally quarterly. And so just like add the task, and then when you repeat the close on a quarterly basis, then those closes will all repeat quarterly. So all your closing tasks will repeat quarterly. If you want something to repeat semi-annually, for example, the best place to do that right now is your non-closing tasks. And so here you can choose to have something repeat quarterly, monthly, yearly, whatever. If you wanted to have it repeat every 2 quarters, you could do it like that, and then choose the date when it starts. And so if we do July, it'll be July, January, July, January. Okay, Nicholas asked, any update on the ChatGPT in the bank feed for categorizing? No sort of formal update, but just to give people the latest in terms of what's going on there. It's working well. We're iterating on the functionality. We're big believers in making sure something works before we go ahead and push it out there in the world. So we're working on some performance improvements and some scalability challenges as we go from sort of rolling this out across our very limited private alpha to a more broad general release. But it works well. I use it in our own close, and excited to give people the opportunity to get their hands on it soon. Right. Well, folks, thank you all so much for taking the time. As always, we appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you all at the next catch up with Keeper in July. As a reminder, these are always the last Tuesday of the month at 10 a.m. Central. So, and if you're not able to catch these, we always post the recordings both on our YouTube channel as well as in our help center. All right, everyone have a good day.